Now, in the fight over Trumpcare, more and more Democrats aren't just defending the status quo on Obamacare, which is good to see. Some are actually bringing up the idea of single payer. Now, one of those seems to be Senator Chris Murphy. Oh, that's strange. Now, he's got a message for the Republican Party. If you go ahead and pass Trumpcare and get rid of, kick 24 million people off their insurance, well, we're going to respond by pushing Medicare for all. Now, in a conversation with the New Republic's Brian Beutler, Murphy said the Democrats will do everything in their power to restore health care to the millions of people who stand to lose it if Trumpcare goes into effect. Now, he says if Democrats get control of the House and the Senate, and Republicans rip away health care from 24 million people, we're going to do whatever it takes to restore health care to those people. If they actually allow insurance companies to discriminate against sick people, then they're going to lose majorities of the House and Senate in 2018, and we'll have the numbers potentially necessary to restore those benefits. So he's talking about the politics there, but he's also talking about policy. Now, what policy? Well, I already teased it, but I'm going to give you a quote that he said on what kind of health package could come about if they have those majorities. Quote, clearly extending Medicare to everyone is much more easy to explain and much easier to comprehend. It's probably most easy for the public to stomach if they're given the choice to sign up for a Medicare program or stay on their private plan. I think you would see, if they were given that choice, a pretty massive gravitation over to a Medicare for all type vehicle because it would likely provide better benefits and at a lower cost. So he speaks truth there. It actually would be at a lower cost, and it actually would have better benefits because it would cover, again, it would cover a lot more things, and it would cover everyone like they do in all these different countries, other industrialized countries that have adopted the same idea. So now, look, what do you think about this, Ron? Do you think that this is indicative of a changing tide within the Democratic Party to start embracing single payer, despite the fact that Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi are steadfastly against Medicare for all? Do you think there's dissension in the ranks?
I think there's a lot of dissension. Yeah, absolutely. I think that about 60% of all adults favor single payer now. I mean, we're more in favor of a universal system than we ever have been before. And this is evident. Bernie Sanders going across these town halls, talking to people in rural America, many of whom are conservative leaning, but still think, yeah, everybody should be covered. We should have a system where everybody's covered. And when you really break down what a universal system would do, people are finally coming around to the point that, there's no reason why the richest country in the world shouldn't have this. We should have what every other country, every other industrialized country has, or some degree of it at least. People are finally coming around to that. A majority of Democrats want it in the platform, but those at the top do not because their donors don't want them to. And we got to primary them out. Quite frankly, that's what needs to happen. But and that's why, I mean, something like a Nancy Pelosi and a Dianne Feinstein, they're so concerning because, especially like, I'll use California as an example. We have a bill to get single payer in the state.
Yep.
And I do think that's eventually, I do think that's how it's going to happen. I think it's going to take states leading the way, and then eventually we're going to get something federal, similar to how gay marriage unfolded, similar to how pot is unfolding. I think that's what it's going to take. So when you have a state like California, a very progressive state, a state that has the resources for it. I mean, we're the sixth largest economy in the world, I think, sixth or eighth or something like that. Just California alone. We can do it here. We can have a single payer system here, and it would probably work quite well. We have people like Dianne Feinstein standing in the way. They need to go because they're not just holding back a state like California, they're holding back the country because it's going to take states like California leading the way.
You know what's ironic? Feinstein actually said, and this was during her, well, I don't support Medicare for all nationally. I think the state should do it. Now, she's from California. California's pushing this, and there's a lot of, obviously, health insurance companies that are pushing against this. And these are the same people that give money to Dianne Feinstein. So it's going to be ironic that she's going to be pushing up against her own idea. She's caught in a really tight spot. She wants to win elections. She wants to get that money. But at the same time, this is something that has been growing and gaining steam in her state. Now, there's been a couple of states that have actually tried this before. California is not the first one to try I think you also
Right.
had Colorado, but that was defeated
Yes.
because of it was. I think it was a close vote too. But you had a lot of health insurance companies, the health insurance lobby, really, really, really pushing hard against it. It also failed in Vermont. I don't know if New York has already tried it, but I know that it wouldn't get through now because of what we've talked with Nomi about with the IDC Democrats, essentially caucusing with the Republicans to stop progressive legislation like this from getting through. So California seems to be our only best hope at this point. And if it goes through in California, and I've said this on the show before, it's going to be like dominoes.
Right.
Slowly, the dominoes are going to start falling. And so the health insurance companies know this. They're pouring extra money into people like Feinstein and Pelosi to try to stop this. And we'll have to see if the money wins out, or if, you know, if the populist wave for this policy. Look, over 80% of Democrats, probably 86% of Democrats, somewhere around that range, favor Medicare for all. So in a big liberal state like California, people who are tuned in, people who are engaged, are going to have a really hard time. You know, those insurance companies are going to have a really hard time turning the people who are engaged against Medicare for all. So, I mean, look, what do you think of the chances? I mean, honest assessment.
Well, I think it's inevitable. I as far as how soon, I'd like to think sooner rather than later, and maybe, you know, trying to be optimistic here, maybe in the long run, this will be seen as a necessary blowback. You know, I mean, kind of one of those, like, you don't get radical change until you reach a point of crisis. Well, we're really at that point of crisis. And the Affordable Care Act was very, very flawed and not a permanent fix, although it was a step in a better direction. But it was a step in a better direction because we had such a fucked up system. It still was not a good plan. And still, by stripping the public option, Obama made it that much easier for this thing to be repealed. So, I mean, really, you know, when they gutted the public option, even back then we kind of knew we were fucked, and we ended up being proven right. So maybe it's going to take something like what's being proposed now and people being outraged and freaked the fuck out, and they're realizing, you know what, a universal system is what we need. Maybe it is going to take something like that, and maybe in 2020 we get an actual progressive in the White House, we'll get single payer. I do think it is inevitable. There's no coincidence that pretty much every other industrialized nation in the world is there except for us. There's not, you know, 36 other countries that have it right, or excuse me, have it wrong, and we have it right with our fucked up for-profit system that turns humans' health into profit centers.
Yeah.
I mean, that just on the surface is so fucked up from a moral standpoint. It's unbelievable. But so I think it's inevitable. It's just a matter of how soon. I think we're going to see it in both of our lifetimes, and I just hope it's a lot sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And to the Democrats that are fighting against this, get with the program. It's incredibly popular.
Or just get the fuck out of the way.
And look, I'm not just saying the politicians, but I'm also saying the Democrats that would agree with this, but for some reason are still fighting against it, or they're fighting against progressive politicians that are looking to primary the corporatist Dems that don't agree with Medicare for all. No, get with the program. Support progressive policies. Again, and I know you're probably going to mention this, or you might not, but maybe you should look into it. Some of the smears against the person that you're going to talk to on the Jimmy Dore show that's running against Nancy Pelosi. So, you know, there are smears against him that I hear are rather nasty. And this is somebody who's just, you know, like the racism and stuff. Oh, the racist old guy. Racist white guy trying to replace a woman. Sexism, you know, that kind of stuff. But the guy's just looking for, you know, to do Medicare for all for everybody to help push this next bill through. And you're seeing, unfortunately, people who claim to be, you know, Democrats, claim to be progressive, claim to stand for this, as over 80% of Democrats say they do, voting against people who want to usher in that change. I don't think that's right at all. I think those people have got to get their priorities straight and realize maybe I should vote for the progressive option and stop focusing so much on identity politics. And I think that's what that whole issue is.
And then the interesting thing is they tell us to stop focusing on
Of
identity
course.
politics.
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally been told, stop focusing on identity politics, you Bernie bro. That sentence has been said to me before. And
God,
I
man.
just sort of just looked at the person pondering how they dressed themselves in the morning and didn't know what to say. But yeah, it's very, very ironic. It is gaslighting 101. Just see Peter Dow's Twitter account if you have any questions on what we're talking about.
Or if you want to pull your hair out, that's what happened to me. I just took a look at Peter Dow's Twitter account and I was like, bah! How can someone be this crazy? Or completely out of touch? But that's a different topic for a different day. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.